Each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope.
The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything.
You are now listening to Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, the voice for the people. Join Richie alongside co-host property damage attorney Hans Kennon as they bring light to the taboo world of big insurance companies, exposing their tactics and fighting for justice. Hear stories from contractors across the state. Contractor Talk, here to protect homeowners and uncover the truth.
All right, and welcome to the show, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. So glad to be here today, and we're on a new dial, 94.9 FM, The Answer, 950 AM if you're listening locally. And we do stream to every streaming mechanism you can possibly think of, from iTunes to Spotify, and we're online and or on our YouTube page, contractortalkpodcast.com, and find us on our YouTube page, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. All of our episodes are there, and as promised, Hans' dapper suit of the day every week it is something different. On our previous show, we had some music, we had some things. We'll get this guy on.
We'll get there. We'll build up to it. We'll build
baby steps.
There we go.
Rebuilding, but he has promised not to wear the same suit in any given show, and honestly, I think he's going to have you guys surprised. Honestly.
Oh yeah, there's some new things in the works.
Love it.
Always.
It's our new home for Contractor Talk, and every week, every show is someone different, something different about really, with other contractors here. Last week we had a plumber, prior to air conditioning contractor, and other folks, and we always have an in-house legal counsel to talk about the laws and ever-changing laws in both property, auto, and other things that you're into. We talk about property damage here at this show, and folks that help us as consumers bring it to that next level, whether it is like a plumbing issue like we've had before, to air conditioning concerns, indoor quality concerns, and my specialty. But many of us have never had the chance or the opportunity, maybe luckily so, to deal with an insurance claim, property damage insurance claim. And most people are confused about the process. They only hear certain things online or on the news and those types of things. And so there are only a couple professions that will be able to help these types of folks to answer the questions. And I'll tell you what, it's not by calling your insurance company. And it's definitely not by calling our CFO, Jimmy Petronas, as he stated many times after of the events of Hurricane Ian and Helene and those types of storms, where he says, don't call a public adjuster, don't call an attorney, but call my office. You'll never get an answer. Nobody will ever answer the phone, and we may get back to your voicemail within never. And so they're very non-helpful, and they want you to stay away from folks that can help you.
But didn't DFS do the thing with the tarps and put tarps on people's roofs who didn't ask for them?
They did. They
did.
And they were actually parading that around, weren't they?
Nailing holes in people's roofs with tarps they didn't need.
And then not paying the claim.
Right. On top of that, saying, well, you know what? Your home was damaged outside of the storm by putting this tarp on, so thereby we're not going to cover your claim. But it was the government that came out and put the blue tarps on to try to help everyone out.
I think, as Ronald Reagan said, "I'm from the government. I'm here to help you," is never a good thing.
It's never. You run when you hear that. It's exactly what you do. So that's the type of stuff you hear on the show, and I'm excited to just really introduce a new show, some more information for you guys that are listening. And again, in our surrounding Orlando listening audience on 94.9 FM or 950 AM, every Monday night at 7 p.m. is where we record our show, and then we stream it later on through other streaming fashions, such as the iTunes and on Spotify, and also on our YouTube page. There's other things I'm missing, but I don't even know. So we're on so many different platforms so we can bring this information to you. Very important for me to do so. I'm your host, Richie Kidwell. We have Hans Kennon over here frivolously looking through information here, maybe on Senate Bill 230 that you were going to bring up.
Well, actually, I was looking at 224. You just can't keep up with the things they want you to do. I think it's funny that now they want to make, and I'm not against mediation. Mediation can be helpful. But when you do 15 or 20 of these a week with citizens, it doesn't pay you anything anyway. And that's a voluntary process. They don't pay any money. Now they're telling me I have to go because consumers are entitled to an informal, non-threatening forum. I'll tell you, the only thing threatening in a mediation is some guy from Citizens telling your client how much coverage they have and why they can't have any of it.
Right, right. And you as a lawyer, you see that, and you should be more attuned to this. And imagine if somebody came a consumer without an attorney to these mediations. They actually believe these people when they show up, these citizens adjusters, and say, okay, hey, like you said, you have $350,000 worth of coverage. And you're like, oh man, my roof's only 20 grand. This is going to be good. And to find out that it's like, but today we came with $500.
Well, actually, $500 is not a bad day in a citizens mediation, because usually it's just zero. They're like, we've looked at the photos and zero.
Wow. Wow.
And then they just stop, and the sentence stops there, and you're like, and the mediator will go, you mean like zero? Like no money? No money today, which means no money ever is what that actually means. Because once they tell you, I tell my clients that, and citizens mediation or full denial by citizens is a stop light that never goes yellow or green.
Right.
It just stays red.
Right.
It's just red. People are waiting, nice insureds, hoping the insureds can do the right thing. They're sitting there with their arm out the window going, this light will turn green at some point. At some point, the insurer is going to pay my claim. And they just sit there and they wait. And months go by sometimes before they even call us. And I will say, where you been? Well, we thought they would just do the right thing. So we're just kind of waiting for them to do something. And then we go to mediation. And I said, well, look, we should go to mediation and let's see what they do. And we go, and literally 90% of the time it's zero. You know, like a big day is like $1,200 or $1,500 on these things. It's crazy.
Wow. And is that a court-ordered mediation?
No, that's the voluntary process that they want to make mandatory. And again, I'm not against mediation. Mediation can resolve a lot of things, and nothing wrong with it. But the idea that it's for the benefit of the consumer is foolish, because consumers, if they believe they can go by themselves, and what I've had people call me and they say, I have a mediation coming up. I'd like you to go with citizens or with the citizens primarily. And I'll say, look, I don't want to take any of your money. They're not going to pay any money anyway. I said, so just so in case you want to be the one guy who ever got money out of citizens, just go by yourself. And if they pay you money, then you get to keep all of it. But you will call me tomorrow and tell me they offer me nothing. And they call back next day and they go, how did you know that? They offered me nothing at mediation. I said, see, I told you. I said, I don't want to take your money in case you're the lucky guy. I said, but I knew you'd be calling me back, and they do.
Right. You're a spirit in this world, man. You do know it all. And so, and most folks don't know what to do, how to package this up to where it is a successful mediation or appraisal or successful insurance claim. Let's just say that. And it all has to do with, did you submit the right documents? Did you do the right thing? Did you get the proper estimates and those types of things? And when you're dealing with this once every 10 years or once in a lifetime on average for a homeowner, you need to know who to call and who's there to help you in that time of need. And as we've said on the show before, there's only two professions that can answer those questions, and that's a public adjuster and, like yourself, an attorney. And today, luckily, we have an awesome public adjuster. His name is James Coyne, and I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself. He's a great public adjuster here in the Central Florida area, and I'll let you go ahead and talk about your company name and who you help here in this area.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me on. I'm excited to be here. I've been following along as you guys have been kind of making these videos over the last couple months. But so to everyone out there, I'm James Coyne. I'm a public adjuster. Our company is All Points Claim Advisors. And as a public adjuster, we're licensed in the state of Florida. And we represent the homeowner, commercial business owner, condominium association, or HOA, with their property damage. I would say a majority of the work that we're doing right now is plumbing claims and hurricane claims, whether it's either wind or flood, which we had a lot of flooding from Helene and Milton. But yeah, what we do as a public adjuster, and I feel like over the last multiple years, we have been trying to just educate in general the people of Florida, because everyone sees State Farm in the Super Bowl commercials, and they think, oh, I've got a claim, I need to call my insurance company. In reality, we need to make sure that the claim is going to be worthwhile before you even let the insurance company know. And what we do is we assess the claim, we review their policy, make sure they've got the proper coverage, make sure there's no exclusion. Now there's exclusions for everything on these policies in Florida, and I feel like it's just going to continue to get worse. So we're looking at these policies. We're explaining, what is your coverage, what is your exclusions, and does it make sense to file the claim? And then we're taking it from A to Z. We're meeting with the adjuster from the insurance company. We're creating the estimate. We're submitting all the documentation that's required, which is now changing all of the time. Time frames are constantly changing, and we're just making sure that anyone that's a part of the claim, whether it's a tarp getting put on after a hurricane, or a restoration company comes in and they do a full dry out of the house, all of these companies need to get paid. And as the public adjuster, we're kind of putting it all together and making sure that the damage gets paid, but also anyone that's doing work along the process of the claim is also getting paid. So it's a great service. We work on a contingency fee, so we're out here helping people, knowing that the amount of money we're going to deliver to them on their claim is going to be dramatically more than what they could have ever gotten. And we charge a contingency fee, and if we can't deliver results to the homeowner or to the business owner, we're not charging a fee. We're working on that contingency just because we know that we're good at what we do. And
I was going to say, I always find contingent agreements, and I work on one also, are very helpful because it literally makes you a partner with your client. Yeah. If we all recover together, we all recover. So I think people should look at it as not as someone taking money from out of your settlement, but helping you build a settlement to an amount that's much more than you would have had. And again, if I don't like your case, it doesn't help me to take it. And if I like your case, then I'm happy to work on it, happy to try to make it as valuable as possible. So again, it makes us partners in it, and as opposed to, again, feeling that someone's getting some amount taken from them. Again, we're all in it together at that point. And once the guy like James has reviewed it, he likes it, he believes it's recoverable, then he can put his whole heart into it. It's similar like if someone were to call you and say, I say, well, so give me $5,000 and I'll tell you if I like your case. And then I call you back and go, yeah, I don't like your case. Well, got my money back? No, I used it all up on time. Well, then you're like, well, what's up with that? You didn't get me any money. So that's why the contingent model really works in my field and in James's field, because again, you become a partner with your client, and that's a good place to be.
That's right. And outside, on your own, rather, the insurance company, if you were to file your claim, they're asking you to get 3 estimates for each portion, we'll call it, the roof. Give me 3 estimates on that. Give me 3 estimates of the interior damages that were caused there, that type of thing. Most homeowners don't have the time, and most contractors, especially after a major event or hurricane, don't have the time to come over and give free estimates to these type of folks that are looking for these competitive advantages. Really just try to fulfill the needs or the requests by the insurance company. So knowingly and not knowingly, they weren't told by their adjuster to say, you know what, you can actually reach out to a public adjuster, a public insurance adjuster, and they will put the whole package together where you only need one estimate, one provider, and that's your company, James, to come by and estimate it all, the whole entire thing, and not only estimate it all, but apples to apples, broken down in their same software that they use in Xactimate. And from what I understand, you use that same software as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
That's
we
right.
absolutely use Xactimate. We've got plenty of estimators that have years and years of experience using Xactimate, certified at the highest level, creating estimates every day. So.
Right. I mean, just that alone is such a time saver. I mean, most of the people that are, and I know myself, I mean, are super busy in the world outside of trying to manage all the stuff going on in their home, right? I mean, who has time to wait for a contractor to come over, give you these estimates, and at that time, who knows until you do get the estimate. And so they're so wildly off as well. You just submit 3 estimates, the carrier's like, we'll go with that lowest one. We might not want to as well, right? So with this, you're able to get with the public adjuster, who then evaluates all the damages. You review their policy to see what's covered and what's not. Get them other portions that might not have otherwise came to mind with them, like for instance, contents, or let's say if their kitchen and bathrooms were out of service, so they had to buy food on their own, they no longer could use their kitchen, or if they have to stay somewhere else, that all that stuff could possibly be reimbursed. And that's where you come in to tell them what exactly on their policy that they could get reimbursed, what they can and they cannot do within that policy to make sure that they maximize their claim. And from what I understand, a lot of the statistics are like something like staggering of like 700% more is about the average of what you can get a homeowner by working with a public adjuster like you, rather than them working by themselves to get estimates from the lowest bidder and submit to the insurance companies.
Absolutely. That's actually a statistic that I've been telling homeowners over the last multiple years. Look, we're on average delivering over 700% more than what you could get without us, and then we're charging 10 or 20% on that. So, I mean, it's just such a big service. And also to touch on a point that you just mentioned, there is a big disconnect between the insurance company adjusters and public adjusters, because in my background, I've worked for large insurance companies in the state of Florida. That's where I got all my training, and that's how I learned the whole entire insurance industry and what to expect and how to deliver results. And when I was working with the insurance company, I loved when there was a public adjuster. I knew that I was going to get a very straightforward report that had all of the parts of the claim involved. We could look at it, we could talk about it, we could speak the lingo of property damage instead of going back and forth with an insured and looking at multiple different estimates from contractors that we don't even know if they're going to actually do the work or not. Mm-hmm. It just made it a much smoother process, but instead they're telling everybody to,
Well, we was talking about they want the client to be unsophisticated and not have the assistance of someone like yourself or someone like myself or Richie for the work that he does. And their best day is someone who goes, I'm going to handle it myself. And they're like, okay, come on by. We'll get this worked out. I always tell the story of a lady who I represented who, when she gave me her personal property list, had forgotten to put her silverware on from the kitchen. And she was an older lady. I said, ma'am, there's no silverware. She said, I forgot all about that. And I'm just like, so I got a public adjuster to come just do inventory of personal property, because there was huge gaps. Like nobody no one doesn't have silverware. No one doesn't have plates. I mean, just things like that were left out simply because of just the lack of sophistication.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Know better, do better. I mean, that's just a simple practice, right? I mean, and most people don't know this because, again, the statistics are once every 10 years or once in a lifetime. In that average range is when somebody has to deal with a property insurance claim, believe it or not. And so we rarely do we have to deal with that, folks. And in our industry, like what we do, obviously we see this all the time, so we can almost, depending on the carrier, a lot of times we can almost tell you exactly what the other side's engineer report's going to look like, or what type of coverage decision they're going to make, or if they're going to push you to appraisal or mediation. And it's like almost second nature for us if we're in the business. And so we're here to help consumers like the folks that are listening now to help navigate their policy, help navigate their claim, and really give them information. Like, say for right now, if you've had a loss within the last year, you can still get help. They continue to change the laws. I think when I first got into the business, it was 5 years that you can use to file a claim after you've had a loss. And then it got whittled down to 3 years, and then it went to 2 years. And then just recently, I think, a year and a half ago, 2 years, we just got it down to 1 year to file first notice of claim and 18 months to supplement. And why that's important is because prior to, it used to be, even when it was 3 years and 5 years,
right.
three years to file first notice and 5 years, that seemed more acceptable. Because think about after a loss, and as many clients as you have that have a tarp over their roof while we're waiting on the insurance company to go through the process with legal or appraisal or mediation, that could take longer than 18 months.
And under the core rule, at 18 months, you can't supplement anymore.
That's right.
So you have to know exactly what the amount of damages are by 18 months, or you are barred from making any further claim as to that.
Right. And think about that. I mean, 18 months it goes by very, very fast. And by the time you get the right folks involved and you actually get to maybe the litigation portion, maybe it's 6 months down the road. Trial dockets, even though they sped up, are 18 months alone for you to get an answer. So if you get something like Citizens, which is owned by the state of Florida and immune from bad faith, they literally go at a turtle's pace. They're very fast at denying claims. That's one thing they are very efficient on. But they're like the long line at the DMV office as far as if you're a client trying to get an answer. No matter it's slow, but it's usually inaccurate. And they're not cutting out checks very fast, right? I mean, in most of the articles that we've seen, they have, after Hurricane Helene, I think, Hans, that they had that it was divulged that they denied 50%.
Well, I guess the most recent is 77%.
That's right.
Were closed without payment.
That's right.
And then State Farm came in a rousing second, about 50%.
That's right.
And Castle Key, Allstate came in at about 48%. So that's the number. So if, the old saying, "He who represents himself as a fool for a client." The idea that you can go in toe to toe with these guys and convince them to pay you money is just simply misinformed.
That's right. That's right. So if you do have a loss, or if you're working with, on your own at this basis for a plumbing claim, like you're dealing with a lot of homeowners that are having this like battle of, well, how do I claim this? How do I fix it? Do I need a trench, through my house to put in new plumbing? Is that what's wrong with it? Is it just a backup? There's so many questions that you might have. Is that covered under my policy of insurance? My grandparents, God love them, right? And one of them left the faucet on and walked away. And they were so scared for like days. They didn't do anything, but they had damage everywhere. And they're like, I don't know if this is even covered. I'm like, I didn't know, but they had to seek the advice of a public adjuster who reviewed their policy and says, yes, it is covered. Yeah. You left the faucet on. It was an accident and there's water everywhere. Same thing with my friends that have two girls, and they were in the upstairs bath. One of them turned the water on, and water went everywhere after the parents left, and they heard a drip, 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 same thing. And they were like, I don't know if it's covered or not because it's my fault. I was like, well, let's have somebody look at your policy and let's see if that's covered or not. At least get that advice before you come out of pocket $20,000 or $30,000 to try to fix this, right? There are things, and that's why we have insurance, right? It's not bad to file a claim. And do know that a hurricane claim or an act of God doesn't go against your loss runs. So, for instance, if you have a Hurricane Helene claim and you are going to a new insurance company and they ask you, how many losses have you had? You can say none. So that's one thing that if you do have a hurricane claim, that's the time to take a look at it. Have somebody come out like James. He'll come out for free and give you or do a free policy review and even look around your home to see if there is anything that might come up or be covered under your policy of insurance. So James, with that, how would they get a hold of you? You have a website, phone number. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I always tell people best way to get a hold of me would be cell phone. You can call me, text me anytime. Phone number is 321-501-6718. That's 321-501-6718. And our website is propertydamagenow.com, propertydamagenow.com. It's got all our information on there. You can see all of our licenses and just a little bit about our company, what we do, and prior successes with happy clients.
Awesome. And I've talked with you before, so I already kind of know. I'm just kind of prepping this up for you. But I mean, if somebody's like worried about next storm season and want to be more proactive about it, would that be something that I would still give you a call about and say, hey, what does this look like on my policy? Can you take some pictures of my house? I mean, how far would you go with a client that's looking for proactive type of protection?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we've been preaching since I started in this business, and just getting ahead of the claims process is the most important thing. So the free policy review, free home inspection, free HOA inspection. This is something we do for clients. It gives them a full photographic report, and most of the time, clients will get a insurance on their property, and they haven't looked at it since they closed on the mortgage. They don't know the name of the company. They don't know what their deductible is. So we'll just go through. We'll break down some of that information for them. I'll give them the very key points, things that if they file a claim, they will be brought up. What is your deductible? Is it $20,000 or is it $2,500? Sometimes that's good to know. And then we would take a full photographic report. Usually we'll do the roof, all the interior rooms, and then check like the hot spots for the plumbing, which would be kitchen sinks, AC, toilets, bathroom vanities. Send it to them. They've got a time stamped and dated photographic report that shows the condition of their property on February 4th. So if something happens in September, we know that it wasn't there prior to that inspection. And it just gives them peace of mind. It gives them an understanding. And the most important thing is to basically teach them to call a public adjuster first. Don't call your insurance company first. You may be having a problem that should not be filed. A claim should not be filed. And then they'll call the insurance company, they file a claim, and then it turns into a denial or a very small payment, which should have never happened. So we are working on behalf of the policyholder, not for the insurance company.
Yeah, and that's a good thought that you brought up, because you don't want to file a claim who then gets closed later on, especially outside of a hurricane claim that I told you about that doesn't come up on a loss run. You file a claim in plumbing and you don't go through and you withdraw that, it's going to be more troublesome whenever you're looking for new insurance, especially if it's something that maybe you shouldn't have filed. That's why you got to give you a call first, James, to make sure that's a good, adequate claim to file, especially under the policy. All right, so more about this as we continue here with Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. We'll take a small break and we'll be right back. All right, and we're back. Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. Thanks so much for joining us on a new dial for us, 94.9 FM, 950 AM. If you're in the Central Florida listening area or online on our YouTube page, go find us there, Contractor Talk Podcast or contractortalkpodcast.com. Find us everywhere you go and stream. You'll be able to find a show there. For several years, we've had this show with topics and our speakers there, so you can find us on our different forums. Spotify is the easiest one. You can go right to your phone, go on Spotify, go over to the podcast section and bring us up there, Contractor Talk. You'll see us right there. You see our fun little logo there. So again, we're on a different platform to start off. Monday nights at 7 p.m. here. We are live on 94.9 FM, The Answer. So if you are in the Central Florida area, listen to our show every week and you won't miss some good information that we're giving to you. Today we have our special guest, our speaker, James Coyne with all, damn it, I had it right there in my head.
All claim
points.
advisors.
Right.
Anyway, so it was such a good preface. So, but you did really good. I think even Annabelle got you on a nice little reel where you were like doing your whole thing right in the beginning, right? Love it. All right. That's
Great.
Good stuff. So always getting better here. And so we're powered by the Restoration Association of Florida. We are a nonprofit association. If you're interested in looking at where we come from, raflorida.org. We do take donations there. We get involved legislatively when there are bad bills such as Senate Bill 230, which
They're all bad.
Hans Kennon here, the lawyer in our group, not only is he a local lawyer, which gives out his cell phone as well, so we'll get to that, but he's also on the property damage board with FJA, which is what they consider to be, and I say they, when everybody's on TV and says, we're going to go after the trial bar, blah, blah, blah. That's what they mean.
Yeah, they mean me.
That's exactly what they mean. People like you are the reasons why premiums are through the roof and all this other stuff.
Well,
Which we know.
people like you and James too. I think you guys both were part of the.
Oh yeah, we all made the boogeyman
crisis.
list.
It's all our fault.
You're all crisis. I mean,
Yeah.
the three of us together are essentially like.
We are the crisis.
We are.
Wow.
We are
Wow.
the axis of evil, I think, is what.
Because of them, I had a midlife crisis. But with all the shaking up that went on here in our legislature over the past couple of years, and our governor, who I voted for twice, which I could have withdrawn that, but had so much power that he was literally able to do whatever he wanted to do in 2021, 2022. And he waited for, what was it, Sprouse?
Chris Sprouse?
Yeah, that's right. He was the Speaker of the House at that point that didn't want to overdo it when it came to these major changes. So they had one change before Sprouse left, and then they had a new, very, very weak Speaker of the House and a very weak Senate President come in, and who was enabling our governor to do whatever he absolutely wanted.
And the worst part is they said it. Like, it wasn't even just they did it. And there were quotes in the Orlando
Admittedly so.
Sentinel in the newspaper that said, "We're here to execute the governor's agenda without question."
Right.
And they did.
I mean, even to the point where Representative Geller, I think he's a great representative, but he literally stood up. He said exactly what I was thinking. He threw his hands up and he's like, "What are you guys doing?" He's like, "We're here to legislate. We're not legislating." Nobody was like, contending these crappy bills that were put out in the legislature that did nothing to help their
I
constituents.
mean, the ones that came out on Friday for like a Monday committee for a Tuesday vote, like that.
Right.
104, 120 pages of almost unintelligible text to be
Right.
digested over a weekend while no one was there.
And a special session to be done in 1 week as well, and so that was the crappy part that none of us in the state of Florida actually got to be a part of. All we got to be a part of was the governor's agenda to run for president. He got $100 million from the insurance companies who were, quote unquote, in crisis. We know that OIR was giving, the Office of Insurance Regulation was giving away these increases. Like, it was like Oprah standing there going, you get an increase, you get an increase. We had insurance companies that never applied for an increase,
Correct.
got an increase. And I'm up there screaming. I said, especially when David Altmaier was there. I love picking on that douchebag. But he was the head of OIR and the biggest douchebag you'd ever meet. But he comes walking up with his little glasses. He's like, and I said, wait. I said, wait a minute. If you guys are giving away all of these, above 15% increases to all these insurance companies, why haven't I seen a hearing anywhere on your public website? And I had my phone right there, and I said, I still have not seen one on here. and I swear it was like me and him were debating. They were like, okay, Mr. Kidwell, you can sit down. And then up comes this little dork. He's like, he's like, actually, we do put them up online, but it happens so fast that people don't really have a chance to see the hearing go up and down. I go, no, because you have every hearing in the past 5 years up here except any hearings on property increases. So they're obviously lying. Nobody up there can tell the truth. Senate Bill 76 in 2020 said that mandated that all insurance companies had to turn in all of their expenses to show whether or not this was really the expense, right, a crisis. And what happens? The next year, OAR gives them in writing, before this douchebag left to be a lobbyist, he wrote him a letter in April when all was supposed to be due. The very next year, says, you know what, guys, I'm going to extend you another year. As they were making all these law changes, 2022 and 2023, we had the most horrific insurance changes back to back, 2 special sessions, and then House Bill 837 in March that just put the death nail in everything, which is property. It was auto. It was medical and life.
Anything.
Everything. They basically just ripped that out.
Anything where your claim was denied or underpaid by your insurer, no longer did the insurer have to pay my fees and costs, so I could give you all of the money from the benefit. That they deemed that you were now on same essentially financial footing as a State Farm or any other big insurer, making you have to pay me for money they already owe you.
Right. And everybody's talking about, I want cheaper insurance. Well, what does it matter when they're not paying out? It doesn't matter what you paid for insurance when they don't pay you in the time of need. Look at that. 77% of all the claims filed by Hurricane Helene were denied by Citizens, which is the largest insurer of the state of Florida. 1.3 million policies they had at that time out of 6.5 million HO3 policies. So single-family residences, about 6.5 million. Rest are like condos, apartments, and other things out of 23 million people that live here in the state of Florida. So it's like they had a huge, they had a big portfolio of these claims that they just recklessly just denied everybody or paid them under deductible. And so that's why our CFO, who's then also raised $3.5 million the year before, by who? Insurance companies, right? And so what is he going to say when we bring the fraud up to him? He's like, oh, we got a task force for this. And by the way, public adjusters are all locusts that show up after an event. And you're like, wait, what? And he's the regulatory body of public adjusters as the head, as the CFO, which we definitely need to get rid of that douchebag. I think we did, right?
Well, actually, I was about to say he won the Republican primary for the House seat vacated by Matt Gaetz. So he will run in November, but he won the primary this past Tuesday. Last Tuesday.
Nice.
So he'll be gone. The idea that he's moving up in the world is a little shocking.
That's right.
But
especially with his background is, my family owns a fish restaurant in the Panhandle. That's his background, by the way. And just so you know, and we, I don't know how we did this as constituents in the state of Florida, voted this douchebag into here with no other realm of influence in this industry, not even knowing anything about anything. He gets this position, and he's over the DFS, Department of Financial Services, which is over the adjusters. And he's calling you guys locusts. I mean, on television many times, and I'm like, how is he not getting sued for slander? If I was a public adjuster, he absolutely would.
He's the one giving us our license.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have to get licensed. We are licensed by the state of Florida. He is the one that gives us our license. Same way that the insurance company adjusters get their license, we're getting it from the same person.
Right.
And it just doesn't make sense to me.
And so I think I've heard this once before. Absolute power ruins absolutely. And I think this is what happened in this case. We had a very powerful Republican governor who then we had so many Republicans take the seats to where, I'll make it easy, senators, there's 40 senators. When I first got involved with this 10 years ago, it was 20 Republicans and 20 Democrats. And you actually kind of want that. Even though I'm a Republican, you would think, oh no, if we just had a little bit more power, we can run this place. Right? And you look forward or you look back at last year, it was literally...
It's 13 to 27.
Yeah, 27 to 13. And so they can't find enough Democrats to fill the positions of these open committee seats. So banking and insurance this year, I just looked at the Senate banking and insurance, and they're outnumbered. Let's say if there's 12 of them, it's 8-4. So how are you going to have a fair vote, when the Republicans are going to stick together?
Well, I mean, even how do you have a fair debate, almost, even too?
You don't. And Senator Pizzo is there, which he's the head of the minority group, which he's great. He's an attorney. He's there. He has a big speaking voice, and people listen to him and everything. He was behind the condo law change, Senate Bill 4D. He hated the bill because they wanted more time to actually do it, but he needed to do something for the folks in the condos. Yeah. So I heard that is what their mission is this year, is to work on the condo stuff that got pushed through recklessly just to appease the Democrats.
Well, I mean, the same thing I'd say, though, for all the other bills that we're dealing with over the last few years. I think they're going to see a lot of the pendulum swinging back, even in the area of attorney's fees. They're talking about rolling back a lot of the condo requirements that they put in place after Surfside and all those things. But again, I mean, they went too far, and in the interim, people got hurt, like my clients and James's clients, when they took all these protections and attorney's fees and rights away from the consumer. Now it looks like some of them may come back when session starts in March to end of May. But there's 2 years of people who got caught up in the wake of this presidential run by the governor. And I tell me all the time, I told a guy today, I said, well, I can't help you on this claim, but after March, March or May of this year coming up, if something else happens, we might be able to help you. I said, literally, the legislature has made it so you really can't afford to get a professional to help you, whether it be a public adjuster or an attorney a lot of times, because they just make it where the expenses roll up and too much time goes by, and it's all been a shame. But the crisis resulted in consumers getting hurt and no one else.
That's right. And it's horrible to try to even think about it as a crisis, because when you look at it, the largest insurer in the state of Florida, Universal, was boasting $1 billion in sales and $34 million quarterly gains during the midst of this fake crisis. And so we saw it coming. I saw it in the first legislative session. I was like, oh man, they're gonna create this fake crisis just so they can come to the legislature later on and say, oh, all these things are happening. We need to make these law change, and let's do it blind. Right, and that's exactly what they did. And then so their governor can say, oh, no, we made all this change so I could help the constituents in the state of Florida. And it really wasn't. It was to help his pocketbook. Right, well, aspirations to run for president, right, and which we know that got shot down so fast. And then what, right? And then now he's agreed to bring back some of it and said, oops, I went too far. But I'm already not seeing a lot of this confidence right now when you see this crap like Senate Bill 230 was just filed in the Senate. Why are we getting more crap filed that doesn't help homeowners early on in the legislative session in the state of Florida? I don't get. Now, the rumor mill, though, is stating that we are going to see attorney's fees come back in some fashion or another to help homeowners. Right. The reason why I say, and it's why I'm saying that it is so important, is because, like you said, Hans, there's no urgency. There's no reason for an insurance company, especially when bad faith is so difficult to get now. Yep. Whereas before, if you just grossly underpaid or slow walked a homeowner or just maliciously didn't pay them or deny their claim, well, you're going to get what you're designed to get, which is like, say, your $10,000 dispute plus attorney's fees paid, right? Plus bad faith on top of that in a single action. Over the past 2 years, they split that up to where now bad faith is a separate action, much more difficult to get now.
Well, what it does, it requires so much more of an investment on the consumer side, which is unfair. Under the current statute, you now have to take your primary case to trial, win it, get a judgment, then you can file a case for bad faith. Most people, oddly enough, aren't looking to litigate a long time. Most people don't want to fight their insurer for the rest of their lives. They want to go back to their homes. They want to close the door behind them, have some sanctuary from the world outside, instead of fighting with their insurer, having me call them or somebody call them and say, hey, got a deposition next week. We got to go to hearing next week. We have to do this. No matter how much people are upset and want to penalize the insurer, the investment of time and effort on a client's behalf is really a lot. It really asks a lot of them. And the new bill that just got filed, I think it's 230 by True Now, wants to make bad faith even harder to obtain. I mean, honest to God, the amount of times you can get a client who wants to go to trial and get a judgment is very low. That's why cases settle. That's why before that statute went into effect, you didn't require going to trial and a judgment before you could bring a bad faith case. You could work those together. As you mentioned, now they're separated out. I mean, the odds of getting an insured to go, you know what, Hans, I'm in this for the next 5-6 years with you. I don't care what happens. It's just not realistic. And the insurers get to use that time as attrition. People just go, you know what, Hans, my house is back together. Thank you. But I can't do it. I've got to take my kid to baseball.
Yep. And just so you guys know, listening now today, as a consumer, even us, we're consumer as well. We're purchasing insurance.
Sure.
We're looking through our own policies to make sure that we have the best coverages in case of time of need. And our biggest asset is our home. I mean, this is where we go every day. We feel safe, and I want to make sure that's protected. I also take pictures of my home annually, making sure every year, because that's now how that's what the law is now, is 1 year to make first notice of claim. So you need to know within the first year if you do have a claim. Not everybody gets on their roof. I don't even get on my roof, but I'll fly a drone over it or have somebody come out and take a look at it, right? And then, but if you open the door to this, James, about like your policies now containing these exclusions and limitations. That's a new word now. Before we would just say, let's look at exclusions in my policy to understand what that is. But now it's limitations. And these insurance companies are giving you this without even your knowledge, just doing it on a renewal and saying, oh, yeah, you saved a little bit of money here and here, or sometimes not even. And you're stuck with these limitations, exclusions, things that you had no idea about and you thought you were covered. Right. I mean, and so that's what's scary now is that you look at an insurance policy, and I think we talked about this before, Hans. Even yourself, you were getting a Frontline or something whenever years back, and you had such a great deal with them, and then they renewed you at a higher price with less coverage, and that sent you on the hunt for new insurance.
It did, and limitations or exclusions are pretty much easy. We don't pay for this. We don't pay for this. We don't pay for this. You can kind of lay them out relatively simply. The limitation is the sneaky one, because the agent goes, "Don't worry, you have coverage for mold. You have coverage for water damage.
Oh, great.
You have coverage," and people go, "Okay." And then when something happens, they go, "Yeah, but it's limited to typically $10,000. Exactly. Everything's $10,000. I got 10. Well, what do you got? I got 10 grand.
Right. So what we started to see over the years is $5,000 sewer backup cap or limitation, and then you would see now $10,000 water damage limitation or cap, and now you're seeing $10,000 mold, which has been around for quite a while. State Farm not even covering mold in many cases in the state of Florida. It's like not covering volcanoes in and wherever they have volcano or earthquakes in California or whatever. And we laugh about that all the time, because in Florida they don't offer you sometimes wind coverage, or sometimes interior water damage coverage, or it's limited to 10,000. But that's what we get all the time, right? We're in the state of Florida. We get sewer backups, right? We get inclement weather. We get wind that lifts up shingles and brings water inside, and it's like they limit those things in which the biggest exposure exists. And so, and whereas you think it would be the opposite, you would think that, hey, we are here for you, right? We are a good neighbor. We're gonna cover you in your time of need. But you have to watch out for that. For instance, my commercial building, we have a different percentage for wind specifically. So a different deductible for that. And so you have to look out for that. So if the place burns down, you get one deductible. If you get hit by wind, it's a different deductible, right? And if it gets a sewer backup, it's a different deductible, or sometimes a cap and limitation. And so that's very difficult to understand, especially in today's world, where our Office of Insurance Regulation has just allowed insurance companies to offer these crazy cheap policies. And I mean cheap in the way of that there's hardly any coverage. Right, and so that they can try to be the good guy and be like, "Oh, sorry, your coverage didn't exist for this, so thereby we're not covering you. We're going to deny you." So, but the point I was getting to is that we work for you, the consumers, and we do fight for you. Many people say, "Oh man, there's not anybody up there fighting for me in Tallahassee." Believe it or not, we are. We're there to ensure, because even though we're contractors working to ensure that things are right and even for us in the state of Florida, we're only as good as our consumer rights and rules are, right? Because we're helping the consumer navigate through this system, you through their policy, us through the contracting side and the rebuild side or estimating side. And if it needs to go to litigation, Hans there to hold their feet to the fire. And what we've seen is that all of those protections to be eroded for the homeowner, and thereby it's made our job a lot more difficult as contractors. You get a lot of spooked homeowners now that are either not wanting to file a claim or just saying, "Oh, you know what, it's not worth it," or and just kind of sticking their tail between their legs and walking away. But yet they paid their policy for years and years and years and getting zero back. That's why I'm trying to change that tune a little bit. It's not bad to file an insurance claim if you have a real need for it. That's why you have insurance. People don't understand that. It's like, it's a little bit easier when you think of like, okay, I rear-ended, like a light pole or something like that. Okay, it's like, oh crap, I gotta pay my deductible. I gotta file a claim. And people don't think about that as much as they do because it's more taboo on their home insurance, especially all of the recent news that has been out on this fake crisis and all these claim volume is the reasons why they blamed everyone else. But yet then you look at the publicly traded companies like Universal and Heritage, and they're doing like their best year ever. And I'm like, is that really a crisis? But because they're publicly traded, they actually have to show their numbers. The rest of them are claiming privilege. Oh, no, we can't do it. And that's where I was getting back to that Senate Bill 76 in 2020. The OIR gave them a year extension. And then the next year when they're supposed to give all their stuff, what happened? Every carrier filed a privilege.
Right.
True. What do they call it?
Essentially, it's filed a privilege log asserting privilege as trade secrets to all the information regarding the payments they were making and the money they brought in.
Right. And when Universal Insurance was asked about the crisis, they said on assignments, assignment of benefits, misuse, and attorneys and roofers and public adjusters, all that stuff. They said, well, yeah, that accounted for about 2% of our outgo and our expenses. And we're like, so again, where's the crisis? Like, if 2% of your expenditures is a crisis, then I'll live the rest of my life in crisis.
James, what do you see out in the market these days?
I'm seeing a lot of. Right now, we're doing a lot of flood claims from Helene and Milton.
You guys do flood like regular, like federal flood claims?
Federal, yeah, with the NFIP, and it's a totally different animal. It's all regulated by the federal government, not the state insurance companies, and it's these two storms back to back was devastating. It wasn't necessarily a massive wind event like we saw with Hurricane Ian. So the insurers are not wanting to just pay for roofs; they want to prove it. So we're fighting more upfront on every claim. When historically on hurricane claims, you'll bring in a public adjuster. We set up all our documents, send them into the insurance company, and we're getting the claims turned around pretty quickly. Now we're bringing in engineers. We use Everest Engineering all the time on hurricane claims because it's just they want to see proof, and they're not necessarily caring about what photos, what evidence we're bringing to the table if we don't have an engineering stamp, or if they're fighting everything because they make a generalization about a storm. Oh, this wasn't a huge wind event, so we're not paying wind damage on any roof, and so we're running into a lot of that. The plumbing claims, I would say the biggest thing that we're running into, you were talking about endorsements and limitations and exclusions. I've seen a lot of companies rolling out this 1% of undamaged matching property endorsement. Right. It's a total nightmare, and I absolutely disagree with it. We're a matching and continuous state in Florida, and they're saying, oh, you've got damage to your wood floor that runs into every single room of your 4,000 square foot house. We'll pay for 1% of your policy limit at $500,000, which gives you an additional $5,000 to pay to replace the floor throughout your house. It's leaving people not even being able to replace kitchens when they've got a dishwasher leak or ice maker line leak. I mean, it's very limiting, and it's people can't get themselves back to whole. So I would say, in general, we're running into some of these smaller issues with these new bills that they're passing. It's affecting people when they can't fix their house back to normal. But I mean, we're still delivering very large settlements on hurricanes and floods. I mean, floods are devastating. They continuously are elongating the deadline for these adjusters that they're hiring. The independent adjusters are hiring to do the work for them, and then they just continuously they say, oh, we need it in 60 days, now we need it in 120 days, and they just keep pushing it back, and they're not turning in their information, which we deliver to them in a week. So it's a battle, but all we can do is document everything, stay ahead of them, and prepare. I prepare every claim like I'm going to give it to an attorney, so I don't have to give it to an attorney, so we can settle it. Right. And if we need to, that's great. Here you go. It's perfect. They should have never denied this.
And quickly, I wanted to touch on the matching thing because we're starting to see that in more and more policies. OIR allowed this rule to come in, but from what I understand, it's like it should not conflict with the matching or continuity. How do you say
continuity?
That? There
continuity,
you go. I love that word. Throughout the house on flooring, for instance, especially if it's locking, because there's no way to properly repair that. Right? It's the whole roof thing, right? Can you repair this and it be then like, let's just call it in our world, code compliant, but in this way, it's still not going to, we'll call it match or equal that continuous feel like you're supposed to on that. So that should not be applied to. But if the lower cabinets then were affected and you have to match the uppers with the lower that were not affected, maybe that 5,000 goes to those uppers, but the flooring should not be affected at all via that 1%. And I don't think that they're allowed to choose both as well. Say only 1% of that, 1% of this to match if it's like a dishwasher claim on the bottom. So many things to talk about with, or just to really think about when you're looking at different policies in the state of Florida. So give somebody like James a call. Listen to our show here, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, and you will be informed here as a consumer. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you guys next week. See you.